There are currently 15 million people worldwide seeking refuge outside their own country. Many have been forced to flee war, oppression, and natural disasters, and they've risked everything to find asylum in the developed world. But a new book says the West is failing to meet their needs and is growing more resistant to welcoming newcomers. It is called Frontier Justice: The Global Refugee Crisis and What to Do About It. Andy Lamey is the author, and he is with us in studio this morning. Thanks for coming in. Congratulations on the book.
Thanks very much.
Tough subject to tackle when you're talking worldwide refugees. Every country has a different way of dealing with refugees, and to boil it down to where Canada ranks, Canada used to be seen as the model of how to deal with refugees.
That's true. In the 1980s, actually, Canada won an award for its treatment of refugees, particularly on the resettlement side, so going out and bringing them here.
And now?
And now, especially if you look at the asylum side, so where refugees come here and file a claim under their own power, Canada, like most other countries, is disappointing in this area. We live in what's sometimes called the no-entry age. It's increasingly difficult to get here.
But when you talk about the restrictions that have been placed on refugees in the last 20 years for Canada, most of it was to protect what is good about Canada, protect the system. And so at the same time, when the numbers started to fall in terms of how many people, you're saying that also was we were turning our back.
That's right. Governments are worried about people who are not real refugees getting here to making claims. So they put in place measures to stop those kinds of claims. But of course, the same measures also prevent genuine bona fide refugees from getting here. So right now we're sometimes described as being involved in a race to the bottom as countries compete to have more and more restrictive systems, which of course has devastating consequences for people who need real protection.
But aren't countries also competing to have the best of the refugees, that, you know, trying to get skill sets in, people who have these different kinds of things that can offer the country as the tax base develops? I
wish they were. Countries are a little bit schizophrenic on this point. So sometimes, for example, when it comes to immigrants, there is sometimes an effort made to bring over, say, wealthy immigrants. But when it comes to refugees, so people who are fleeing not necessarily because they have a lot of money, but because they're in danger, countries are not competing to bring them in. If anything, the opposite.
So when we take a look at the way, for example, Australia was criticized heavily for its treatment of refugees.
Australia in recent years has perhaps gone the farthest to keep refugees out. At one point, they had a system of mandatory detention. So men, women, children who arrived and made refugee claims in Australia were automatically imprisoned. That was controversial. Things are no longer as bad as that.
But sometimes they were imprisoned longer than criminals.
That's very, very true. And they had, of course, in many cases, in fact, in most cases, done nothing wrong, and yet they found themselves in detention.
What does Canada have to do, or what can we do, I should say, to make it a better system?
Canada has a strain of something very good in its refugee system. It's certainly not perfect, but Canada has pioneered a way of recognizing the rights of refugees that, as I argue in the book, we could develop and build on to become what the world so desperately needs now, which is a real model country of first asylum, a country that gets it right. So Canada recognizes the rights of refugees, not enough, I argue, but more than most other countries. And that's something that more Canadians should be aware of.
Why is it such a hard sell?
It's a hard sell because refugees are unknown. They arrive before we know why they're coming, and there's something about people arriving spontaneously under their own power that seems to set off an anxious reaction in many receiving states.
And yet the benefit would be?
There is a benefit. If you are open to refugees, it's a sign usually of being an open society and a strong society. And the benefit, I think, would be we would have finally a model state where we could start to make comparisons and say, hey, look, this is what a truly just country of asylum looks like.
Andy Lamey, that's just a portion. We've just given a hint of this book.
The surface.
I know, but I appreciate you coming in to share your stories with us. And now, how to cook Indian.
Sanjeev Kapoor is one of the world's